Hi everyone. We see that there's quite a few people joined. Probably more will join, but everything is recorded. Don't worry, you can go back and rewatch some of the parts. So today we will have a workshop about Mage, which is a tool for creating data pipelines. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, because like we will do a lot of amazing things today, and you probably saw all of them in the description. So the list of things we are going to do today is quite long, and probably for me it's a good idea if I just give the floor to Tommy. Tommy will do most of the talking and the workshop. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the content of the workshop today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Alexi. Hello, everyone. Data Talks folks. Super excited to be back here. Love everything about this community. So thank you so much for having me. So I'll walk through a few things. I'll share a little bit of myself, what Mage is. I'll break down what we're going to be going through, and then I'll share how we can go about this, make this super fun workshop. So first, a little bit about me. Hello, everyone. My name is Tommy Dang. I worked as a software engineer as a data and then data engineer at Airbnb for a little over 5 years. I left in 2020 and started Mage. Been working on Mage for almost a little over 2 years now. We open sourced Mage back in 2022, summer of 2022. And ever since then, been really just focused on helping the community, helping data engineers, making data engineering more accessible, whether it's for existing data engineering teams, small, large, but also folks like data analysts, analytics engineers, etc. So that's a little bit about me. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Mage. And then what is Mage? Mage is an open source data pipeline tool, and people use it to build pipelines, multiple different types of pipelines. We have a concept of a data integration pipeline. That's where you sync data from one place to another. If you've heard of a tool called Fivetran, Mage does that. We use an open source standard called Singer. And I'll go through all this. You can also use Mage to build pipelines that transform your data. So let's say you pull in data, now you have data in your data warehouse, data lake. You want to transform it, you want to aggregate it, you want to combine it, etc. You can write SQL scripts, Python scripts, or use dbt to transform that. So that's Mage in a nutshell. What I'll go through today with everyone is first, we will build a simple data integration pipeline, move data from one place to another. Then we'll build a batch standard pipeline. This is writing a Python script, a SQL script, writing them, run this, then run this, then do that. We'll make them all talk together. We'll do some charting, we'll do some analysis. Then I'll show you how to add some dbt into the mix, and then we'll orchestrate it. We'll do some data validation, some data quality, some observability, things like that. But along the way, I hope everyone has awesome questions, comments. Let's make this interactive, okay? So I have an agenda, I'll go through it, but I'll stop, take a look at the questions. Anyone have any questions? We'll jump around. It'll be super fun, okay? Awesome. Sounds exciting. So let's go. Step one, let me go ahead and step one, you gotta share the screen. Okay, sharing the screen, everyone. And hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. All righty. So here, screen, everyone can see, right? Great. So you can run Mage very easily. Actually, you know what? While people are here, can I share a link? I can share a link in this chat.
Yes, please put it to the Zoom chat.
Okay, awesome.
I will
Zoom
share
chat. Oh, got it. All righty. So you can run Mage. You can install it locally. You can do via pip, conda, poetry, or what's super easy is installing and running it via Docker. But for this demo, why install it? Just go to our demo. So I shared the link, but everyone who's following along, you could go to demo.mage.ai. And one caveat, this is shared amongst a lot of people, so don't upload anything secret or sensitive there. Okay, so here I'm running Mage on Docker, and when you start Mage, it will create a bunch of files for you. So here, let me show you. It creates some folders for you, just like this, but you can organize it however you want. You can add subfolders in some of these folders, but it does have a mono repository. So default repo is just the default name of my project. And so you can name it anything. So once I start that, it's gonna read files, it's gonna read from files from my computer. So here's the 4 pipelines that somebody on my team has created in the past. I'm gonna go ahead and create a new one. Let's go ahead and create a new one. We'll create a data integration pipeline. Now, what is a data integration pipeline? It's a low code, no code way to just sync data from one place to another. You heard of things like CDC, change data capture, things like that. Now, there's quite a few sources, and how Mage approaches this is there's a company called Stitch in 2018. They came up with this spec, the standard, this way of doing data integrations called the Singer spec. And what's really great about it is there's been over 300 open source implementations of it. Someone has created they call it tap or target to sync data from, let's say, Salesforce, from Postgres, from MongoDB, etc. And so we've added quite a few of them. When you click select source, you'll see a drop down. I'm just going to show you how to
stop you. Sorry. So I am wondering how exactly we get to this screen. So right now I'm trying to open the link that you sent, demo.mage.ai.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it seems that the service is temporarily unavailable. I get 503. Maybe somebody is having that too. Maybe you can quickly show us how do we actually do this locally? Because you said it's easy to install with pip. So do I just do pip install mage to get started?
Yes. Yep. Let me go ahead and share this now. So this is the setup link right here. So then if you can share that setup link out, and then I'll run through installing with some folks. Okay, so then once you're on the setup screen, there's a few ways. If you have Docker, I would recommend running it via Docker, just like this. Of course, you can change the project name to Data Talks Club, whatever project name you want. If you don't have Docker, then we can install it using pip or conda. So pip install mage-ai or conda install -c conda forward mage.ai.
Seems simple enough. Just install it with pip or conda and then run mage start and project name.
Yep. The demo sometimes has a 503 if somebody is consuming too much memory, just because it's shared cluster, it's a shared container, and so if someone's running, mining crypto, I hope no one is doing that. It'll restart itself sometimes. So every now and then refresh it. But if you want to follow along locally, here's how you can do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. That's a good one. Good call out. Thank you so much, Alexei. Okay, so let's go. I'll start over. We'll go to the top left and you click this new button and you'll be able to create a few different types of pipelines. We're going to go over data integration and standard. So first, let's do data integration. Then here, you'll be given a drop down of various sources that you can select from. There's quite a few.
Data integration is our first step in the pipeline, right? So there are some sources of data and we want to consume this data and bring this data to a data lake, a data warehouse somewhere, right? That's what we're doing right now.
Yes, exactly. So let's say you're setting up, your first data engineer, analyst on the team, and you want to get data from third parties into your warehouses, your databases. You can use a tool like this to do that. I'm not going to show off how to pull data from a third party. So actually, let me run through a few things. Let's say I had Amplitude, for example. Every source has its unique setup. So here I'd put it in my API key, I'd put it in my secret key. If I wanted to do Salesforce, that is a different set of credentials, just like this. I'm going to show you Postgres real fast because I have a lot of tables there. So you can choose Postgres, you can choose all types of databases. So here I'm going to paste in some credentials. I have Postgres running locally just because it makes for a better demo and faster. But you would normally paste in your database, your host, etc. If you have one running in the cloud, you can also test your connection here. Okay, it verifies. And then depending on the source, once you click view select stream, let's say it's Google Analytics. You'll be able to see different types of streams for visitors per day or visitors per country. Because this is Postgres, what it's doing is it's showing me all of my tables in this schema that I wrote behind here. So I'm going to select a few. Let's see, I have one for user with emails like this. And I have, maybe let's just do another one, account, for example. Okay, so once I click confirm, now I can configure my table. So there's a few ways you can sync data that we support. There's three. Full table means every time you run this, it will loop through the entire table and just copy all of the rows in that table. And then if you do incremental, what that's doing is, let's say I'm syncing the user table and there's a column called updated app. On the first day, let's say it syncs all 1,000 rows. Then tomorrow, okay, so actually the first day it syncs 1,000 rows, and the very last row, the updated app was, the 20th. So then tomorrow.
Just stop you again, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, for those who want to follow it along right now, what exactly they should put in Postgres there, so they think that you put, will it work in the demo page?
Yeah. Maybe
you can send it because like it was pretty fast, so maybe somebody wants to just copy paste it too.
Yeah, of course. Let me send you the other one right here. Okay, so here is one that everyone can follow along. Can I paste that in Zoom for you to share?
Zoom.
Okay.
Is it okay that there is password? Like it's
yes. This is a public database, Postgres database online, so people can paste that in there.
Yeah, I'm putting this in the description for those who are watching this
awesome.
later, and I will also put it to the live chat right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry for I keep interrupting you.
No, it's not interrupting. This is interactive. This is better. Just staring at me going through it for an hour is not as fun as it being interactive. So I like this. This is way better. This is more exciting. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we'll paste in this new credentials. Let's test the connection. It's going to pass. Nice. Okay. Then we click view and select stream. And then we'll take a look at what tables there are. Maybe for this one, we'll click contacts, and we can also filter, type in user. There's one with user with
you said it's interactive, so I'm going to interact with you again.
Yes.
So there is a question about hiding secrets in Mage.
Oh,
so is there a way to, like, I don't know, like for example in GitHub, I would create a secret somewhere. You have something like that, so I don't have to like put my passwords in plain text?
Of course. Great question. So there's three ways you can handle secrets in Mage. One is environment variables. So let's say I'm starting up Mage, I'm deploying it. You can use something like this, environment variables, something like that. That's one. The second way is you can use the built-in secrets for Mage. And then in here, I can add, let's say, where was that password? Okay, so PGPW, like that. And then Mage will have another password. And then the third way is when you deploy Mage to GCP, Azure, or AWS, Mage has built-in connections and integrations with those cloud providers' secret manager.
Thank you.
Great question. Love it. Keep it coming. Awesome. Okay, so let's do that. What is the secret name? What's the secret name? Okay, so now we do that. Oh, but I want people to see the secret so that they can copy along. Okay, so here we have chose the contacts table and then the user with emails table. Okay, so I was sharing about the three types. Full table, sync everything. Incremental, it will pick up from where it left off, right? So then little by little. Now, data is cheap, so I typically recommend just doing full table unless you have your source has like a limit on API calls, or it costs money to query the data, or it's just going to put a big load on it. I would recommend doing full table so that you have a daily snapshot, or hourly, whatever snapshot of your data each day, and then you can analyze, roll back, etc. And then finally, there's log-based, which takes a little bit more setup, but it's actually really great on your database. So log-based for Postgres, for example, there's something called write-ahead logs. Every mutation transaction is written to this log, and then mage would just read from that and then perform that operation like update, insert, etc. Awesome. Okay. So then next is from here, we can choose which columns we want. By default, it'll be all of them, but maybe some of them you don't want. Maybe this one you don't need. And then, okay, we want that. Let's go check this one. Maybe we don't want this. Maybe we don't want this. Sensitive data, for example. Another really cool thing you could do is, so remember how the replication method, you can do full table incremental. So there's a column here called unique. You can choose it to use it, you don't have to, but let's say we wanted to. So for this table, we're gonna tell mage, hey, this column ID is unique. Okay, great. What do you want to do when you run a sync and there is a row that has in that column a duplicate value, let's say ID 1? You can either ignore it, right? So it'll ignore it and it'll just keep appending, like add that. Or you can say, hey, if you detect a duplicate, let's update those values. So really flexible. I'm just going to ignore for now. Awesome. So now we go down here. Okay, this looks good, looks good. Let's go ahead and choose a destination. So let's go ahead. Again, there's quite a few destinations. I'm going to choose Postgres again, just because for demonstration purposes. You can paste in, let's paste in the table that we had before. And we all might have conflicts though, because we're writing to the same table. So I'm going to write, let's just do data talks. I'm going to do TD, okay? Other people write data talks, some other initial. Great, let's go ahead and test this. So what's going to happen now is when this runs, it's going to take these two tables, drop some columns. Actually, I'm going to do that. And then it's going to sync it and create two tables in this schema in this database. Now, just like that, I'm done. I can sync my tables. But there's another thing that we could do as well. We could optionally add a Python script that will transform row by row. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this right here. And this is a row by row transformation. So you can do a lot of things here. You have access to the entire row, so then you can add columns on here. You can obfuscate columns. Let's say there was a column here called, I think there might be an email column. Okay, no, we left that out. But let's just say there's a column for email, and this is your personal email. Maybe you want to hide the email. So then you do something like, like this, for example. You do something like that. I'm doing that with something like social security number. That's a unique identification. It's PII, personal identifiable information. So then we can hide that. Or you can have a computed column like this, computed column. You can have like 1 + 1 × 10, for example. You can do anything in here. And what will happen is every time this runs, this Python script will run on each row. Okay, so now we're done with this data integration pipeline. Maybe we should rename it. Let's rename it because it's named Wispy Flower. So then on the left-hand side right here, you can go down to your Python settings, and I'm going to name this sync PostgreSQL. This will come in handy later when we start orchestrating and having pipelines trigger each other. Okay, let's go ahead and save that.
Question.
Yes.
So the question is about, so here when we selected the streams, we selected the database in Postgres, right? And then we selected columns manually. How about using a SQL query? So what if we want to do a join and then based on the results of this join, consume the data?
Great question. Then we would typically save that for the batch pipeline, which I'll go to it and show. Perfect.
Right now, the use case is there is a database, maybe it's an operational database, and there is a backend that inserts some stuff into this database.
Yep.
And we want to listen, to subscribe to the events of this database and act on them. So it will be like a streaming case, right? So every time the event is happening, we act on this event, right? And
yep.
And if we talk about the SQL question, the SQL query, right? It would be something that we run like every hour or every day, right? It would be a
Yep.
different use case. It will not be, we will not be reacting to inserts to the database, right? It would be different.
Yes. Yes,
Got it.
yes, that is correct. There's a couple ways to do this. So the reacting to the queries, the operations, you can do log based, or if you choose full table incremental, you can have this pipeline run on a schedule every hour, every minute,
So
every
right
day,
now it's
etc.
more like a batch case, right? Because we
Exactly.
are processing the entire table. And log
Yep.
base would
Exactly.
be acting on events as they happen in the database.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just gonna take a look at before we go to the batch pipeline. I'm gonna take a look at some of these questions. So someone asked to get the how-to docs. So that can we send these docs again? The setup doc. Send the setup doc again. And then someone said under view and select streams the account option. Okay, so let's go back. Oh,
Can
you
you
can.
also read this question a bit slow, questions a bit slower? Because for people who will watch this in recording, they will not
Mhm.
necessarily see the questions in the live chat. So for them, it's
Oh, I
easier
see.
to
I see.
understand what you answer.
Okay, so there's a question about when clicking view and select streams, there's no account option. No need for the account. Let's select contacts, and then let's select the stream called user with emails. So let's do those two. And then that should solve it for them. Awesome. Is that Python function? Someone asked, is that Python function executes in parallel for each line, or is it just single thread from top to end? It's single thread from top to end. Great question. Can you talk more about the integration ecosystem? Yes. So someone asked, can you talk more about the integration ecosystem? By integration, there's two types of integration, I would say. Integration could be integration with DBT, with high touch, with Spark, and great expectations. And then there are these data integrations. Let's talk about these data integrations. So for these data integrations, we use a lot of open source. Oh, almost all of these sources that you see here and these destinations you see here, the underlying code someone has created, the open source community has created. There's over 300 of these. They're called taps and targets. They adhere to something called the Singer spec. So Singer like this. Singer spec like this. Stitch, a company, came out with this in 2018, and it's widely adopted. It's the data engineering standard for doing these types of data integrations. And how Mage interacts with this is when it's a team or company needs one of these, or even the open source community, when they need it, what they'll do is they'll take an existing tap or target, and then they'll bring it into the Mage repository. And then what we'll also do is we'll take ownership of it, we'll clean it up, we'll standardize it, we'll write more tests for it, and we'll maintain it. And then it will appear in this dropdown for everyone to use. Hope that answered your question. Okay, we'll go to the next part. Let's go ahead and build a standard batch pipeline. So go back to your home page.
Wanted
So
to understand what we have done so far. So right now you created a pipeline, you created a source, Postgres source, right? You selected a couple of databases, some columns there, and then you created a target, which is another database. Did something happen at this point, or nothing happened yet?
Nothing happened. We can actually, I was gonna wait to run it, but let's go. Let's all run it together now. Okay, so let's see, we got this. Okay, everything's good. Let's see if this works. So then while you're on this page where you're editing, you can go back to your triggers page. So expand your left-hand side. Let's click on this triggers page, or you can just simply click the name of your pipeline and then it'll go back there. We will actually create a recurring trigger later, and I'll tell you all the different triggers. You can trigger your pipeline on a schedule via an event or even an API call. For now, let's just click this run pipeline now. And we can see this run. This will just run it one time. Okay, so we can click on, and then after that, click on syncs in this top part, and we can see if it runs or not. Okay, let's see. Also, I was going to show the logs as well, but maybe we could show the logs now. Yeah, sure. We could show the logs. See, we're showing logs right here. Awesome. Okay, so that we do see there's been an error. Oh, perfect. We'll just jump into the whole observability piece. Okay, so here's the sync. Okay, so it's great. We can see that something failed there. Now we can dig into it. We can go ahead and click on the schedule like this. We can even look at the block runs, see which ones failed. Oh, contacts failed. Okay. Then we can take a look at the logs. So here, the logging, we have structured logging for all of it. You can see the system will output logs. And then if there's an error, you can even filter it down to the error. And then you can click on this. You can then click on the errors and see the detailed output. Oh, we don't have permission to create schema. Got it. Okay. So then what we'll do is let's go back to our pipeline. Let's not create that schema. So then let's just do mage. I think this should be fine. Mage or public. Maybe we do public then. So that one exists. In that case, everyone should rename, because we're all probably writing to the same place. Let's rename our tables. So here's how you can rename your table. Remember when we clicked view and select stream and we selected the stream? You have a few options you can do. Destination table name. I'm just going to do data underscore td. And then I'm going to do that here as well. That way, we'll be able to write to an existing schema. And then we all have our own tables. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's rerun this.
How did you save it? I did not notice the save button. Did you press something or it automatically saves, or how does it work?
It will auto save every 10 seconds, or if you press Command S or Control S, depending on the OS, or you can just go to File and Save Pipeline.
Because you said, like, let's save it, but then I did not see any action happening because you probably pressed the hotkey, right? But we didn't see it.
Yep. Okay, so let's see what happened here. Public. I guess public doesn't exist either. Okay, great. Let's go back down to and just do mage then. I'm pretty sure mage exists. Great. Okay, so here we can do file, save pipeline, just like that. Awesome. Cool. Let's do it now. I'm sure mage exists because we were able to read from the mage schema.
There is a question. If you're connected to the database, would it be possible to have an auto complete on the target and also the schema to avoid manual issues?
Yes, that's a genius feature. Let me save this feature request and make sure we implement that. Give me 1 second.
Like we could have avoided an issue like that, right? So that we would have seen that public does not exist because there is
exactly. Okay, let's see what happened here. Live debugging.
Isn't it fun, right?
Very fun, very fun. But this is just showing off how easy it is to debug. Okay. Do you have permission to run? Okay, so this user doesn't have permission to. Okay, so let's see, username demo. Oh, I see what we did here. Give me 1 second. We have the wrong usernames. So this user has only, I think, create table, and then we need create schema. Give me 1 moment here. We'll just change the passwords and all that. Okay, let's see. Nope. Yeah, so part of the permissions is if you want to write to, let's say, any SQL type databases that use the schema, the credentials you have here need to differ a little bit. So of course, this top one right here, reading from the source, the only permissions you need is read schema, read table. But then down here, you need some write permissions. And this credential does not have write permissions. All right, okay, perfect. I found it. So let's go ahead and change some of those write permissions. Okay, so the username, let's change it to this mage like this. And then I'm going to paste in this password. Okay. And then if you can, I'm going to paste this to you. Let's see if you can share this one out. You can share that one out. Okay, awesome. And then I believe now we can actually just change these to your own personal schema. Go ahead and test connection there. Cool. Let's go ahead and now run this. Awesome. So then we'll have two sets of credentials. One will have the read-only one for the source, and then we'll have the one that can write for the destination. Okay, nice. It's running. Progress looks good. Oh, perfect. Look at that. Finished. Okay, so it did contacts. Now it's going to do user with emails.
Bit fast, because I was busy copying the credentials.
Awesome, awesome. Cool. Great. So this is yep, looks like it was able to write the first table, and now it's just reading from the second table, and it should write it soon. But here's a way you can track it. You can also take a look at the logs as it runs. Another thing you could do is you click here. Oh, look, it completed. Great. Awesome. So here, completed. Great. Now we can let's go to our second type of pipeline. Let's go ahead and create a standard pipeline. So you can go home by clicking on your project's name in the top left corner, or just clicking this mage icon, and it'll take you back to your pipelines page. On your pipelines page, let's go to the new button in the top left corner, and let's click on standard. Also, by the way, what's the time looking like? So I know if I speed up or slow down.
I mean, technically we have 25 more minutes. That's
25 minutes? Okay, I need to go fast.
But we can take more time if you have time. But
I do. I just want to make sure people are having fun, excited, not watching like that.
It takes more time, it takes more time. But
okay, awesome. Cool.
So
let's go.
We have, let's say 55 minutes.
Sweet, sweet. Okay, let's make this a fun show for everybody. All right, so now we're on the batch pipeline. This is going to be exciting. Okay, so on the left-hand side, you see all your files. You see a bunch of buttons. Let's go ahead and first, let's add a data loader. And a data loader it provides a bunch of templates. It's just going to be just Python. You can choose between Python, SQL, or I'm going to show you Python first, and then we'll go to SQL. For this one, let's go ahead and choose. You have a ton of different templates. These templates are just boilerplate. But at the end of the day, you just write a bunch of Python yourself. But let's just choose this API template real quick. Okay, so then click the API template. Let's give it a name. I'm going to call it load API data. You want to give it a good name because every block in your pipeline, every step. So look at this. This is my pipeline right here. Every step in your pipeline, we call it a block. Every block is an individual file. That file is highly reusable, and you're going to expect your teammates to reuse it. So you want to give it a good name. Okay, so here it's again importing a bunch of boilerplate. In this URL, I'm going to use a URL like this. I'm going to share this with you, Alexi, in the Slack. Okay. Actually, let me share with you the full code. So here, what I'm doing here is I'm just going to paste this in right here. Okay. And let me paste you this code.
I am wondering how I'll share it. I'll just create maybe a gist on GitHub.
Or what we could do is I can just share the URL. They can paste that in here if they follow along, pressing the data loader.
And then later we maybe can create a repo.
I'll create the repo and I'll share it. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so here's the URL like that. Okay, so once you paste this in, let me walk through what it's doing. It's really simple. URL, it's using the built-in requests the built-in request library, and then it's just going to read CSV from that. Now we can test our code by pressing this play button in the top right. And then the output will appear here. And you can see this is just a table. It's a preview of the 10 rows. If I want to see more of it, I can expand here and take a look more at all the rows, just like that. Awesome. I'm going to do a few more advanced, actually, I'll leave that there for now. So that's step one in our pipeline. We're loading data from an API. And what this data is restaurant data. Next is I'm going to load some data from Postgres. Remember that Postgres that we just ran syncing? But before we do that, we need to update a file. So there's this file called io.config.yaml. It stores a bunch of your connection credentials. So for here,
I was really wondering what these files on the left side are. Is it some sort of repo? Like, I guess when we create a pipeline, this is like default structure being created.
Yes, it is.
We can save this file somewhere on GitHub, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up. When you start Mage for the first time, let's say you did Mage start, Mage init. Let's say you didn't name your project. It's going to default to default repo. Let's say you named it data talks. It would be called data talks. Underneath there's a few folders that Mage would just automatically create for you. And underneath these folders, you can have any folder structure you want. And now this is a file system. It's reading off of my laptop right now. And I use Git. I'm able to use Git to do version control, create pull requests, sync my data, my code with my team's code on GitHub. So you can do a lot of CI/CD, things like that. And we actually have a built-in Git integration. Let me share with you. Git sync. I can share this with you as well. So you can do all the Git from Mage. You can set this up through here. That's a different setup though. So you can go through your settings and go through your Git settings just like that. I can go through that at the end, but yeah, that takes a little bit more setup. Okay, so here let's go to the IO config, and then let me share with you some credentials that you can use here. So what we want to type in here is we want to type in the credentials to connect to our Postgres. So remember the database was mage-demo2. The host was db.bit.io. This password is this password. And I'm going to paste this in the chat for everyone. Okay, like that. Everyone's schema will be different. I think mine was mage data talks CB. Okay, I think.
Did we change the schema or was it the table name?
Let me check. I'm going to share this with everyone in a sec, but let me go ahead and check real quick. So let's go back to pipelines. We were in sync Postgres. What did we do? We saved it. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's just mage. And then we had this table right here. So we made the unique table. Okay, let's go back. So then it'll just be mage. So everyone can use these credentials right here. Okay, so let me share this with you. Make sure you click save file content. Okay, so here we're good right there. I'm going to close this. But now we're back in our pipeline.
Share that. So you'll need to redo this because the moment I try to paste it to YouTube description, like it messes with the formatting.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do it again. Okay.
This YAML file because we just will take credentials that we used earlier. That's the same credentials.
We'll do. So let's say you're on your pipeline page. You're editing your pipeline. On the left-hand side, you'll see all your files in your project. At the root of your project, you'll see a file called io_config.yaml. You can open that. Just click it and it'll open up. You actually might see something, a lot more information on there. There's a bunch of default keys in there for connecting with, let's say, Redshift, Snowflake, etc. but all we care about is the Postgres one. So here I typed in some credentials, and these credentials will allow us to query that database that we just created a table in from the data integration pipeline. So take the credentials that Alexi just pasted to you all, and then paste it in there. And then go ahead and click Save File Content. And I'll save it for us. And then once you're done, you can click this View Pipeline or just X this out to go back to your pipeline. Cool. So now that we're on here, I showed you how to add a block to your pipeline using Python. But like Alexa said, what if we just want to query the database? Use raw SQL. No problem. Let's add another data loader. So click data loader and let's click SQL. I'm going to name this one load users. And then we'll save this one. Now here you have a drop down. You connect to all types of databases, data warehouses, etc. Let's choose Postgres. And then in this drop-down profile, if you remember the IO config, we had a profile called default. Let's choose that one. Let's choose default. And then in here, we can write a SQL query. Let's go ahead and write select star from. Now this is, we need to make this match. Remember that destination table that we did in the data integration pipeline? I believe we did the schema mage, and then the table name, everyone's is a little different, but I wrote user with emails underscore data talks underscore TD. Yours might be a little different. Now there's a few other things you can change here. You can, when you run this block of code, if another block depends on it, it needs to take that SQL data and then put it in some table. So you can write in a schema here. It will write to whatever schema you want. It'll choose whatever table name you want. Or if you leave it blank, it'll just automatically create the table name. Okay, so now we can go ahead and run this. Actually, change this write policy to replace. What it'll do is it will just replace the table every single time you run it instead of keep appending. We can also test this out by pressing the play button. Okay, so it's connecting, it's running. So I'm going to upgrade my database. Awesome. Awesome. Great. Now we can see a preview of the data, just like that. The table that we synced over from the data integration pipeline. Now we loaded data in two different ways. Before we move on, I want to show you, let's visualize some of this data. So now let's go back up to our load API data right here. Let's check out, there's this button next to the play button for charts. Let's click this one. Let's choose histogram. Okay, so in the histogram, there's a few settings here. There's a drop down called number column. Let's choose the column for rating. And then once you're done, press this play button. And now what we can do is this chart it's a quick way to validate your data, get a sense of your data, visualize your data to see, hey, is the data that I'm pulling, is the logic that I'm creating, does it look right? Is the distribution correct? Maybe you could have accidentally pulled data for only 5 ratings, and then you can see, oh wait, I left out all the 4s. But this looks okay. This histogram looks okay. Another thing you can do is let's choose charts again. Let's choose pie chart. And then we'll click this pencil button. Let's choose cuisine so that we can see the distribution of cuisine amongst our data. That looks pretty even. If one of them was drastically different, we would see that our data is skewed. Next is we can do quite a few things. These are highly customizable. I'll show you a few other ones. That's really quick. You can, in this drop down again, you can choose unique values so we can see, okay, which columns are unique. We can also choose most frequent values. So then we can look at, okay, which columns have a lot of frequent values. So, seafood appears 20% of the time. We can also do something like summary overview. This tells you how many columns, how many rows, how many categorical columns, etc. And then finally, you could do something like featured profiles, just like this. And then you can quickly look at the min, max, mean, median. So there's some quick ways you can do some charting. Here's another way you could do charting. So let's scroll down to our load users block down here. There's a column called delivered at. It's a timestamp column. What you could do is you can use your charts and you can do a time series. This is helpful to see, change over time. Let's choose time series line chart. And then there's a few things we need to configure. For the time column, because we care about delivered at. Okay, so delivered at is like when the email was delivered. Time interval really matters because that will show you, do I show the time over a year, over seconds? Well, because I know this data is over many, many years, I'm going to choose time interval year. And then, of course, it's going to group by delivered at. It needs to aggregate. So let's go ahead. We want to just see every year how many emails are sent. So let's just do count, and then let's just do ID email. I'll click this play button, and then let's go ahead and take a look. So as you can see, every year, this is how many emails are sent. It goes up and down. Oh, down here, we didn't send any emails. Maybe we didn't care about emails that year. So those are some really cool ways to just visualize your data and test the data as you build out your pipeline. Okay, so next I want to add some transformations. Now that I have my data, let me just collapse these real quick. One thing I'm going to do is a simple transformation. So this table right here, user ID, the restaurant data, there's a bunch of spaces and different capitalizations of the columns. I want to standardize it. I want to make it match down here. Down here, we lowercase it, we put underscores everywhere. So go to your block. You can add another block like this, or if you just scroll down, click transformer, hover over Python, and let's just use generic no template. And then we'll name this clean column names, just like that. Okay, save and add block. So what happened here? It actually automatically linked these two together. That's for convenience. But what I actually wanted to do was I wanted to have this clean column names be dependent on load API data. So what can I do? I can actually hover over this, drag it, and then drop it on here. So what did I do here? I actually told Mage to say, run this block, then pass its data down to this block. I actually don't care that these two are connected, so I'm going to delete this connection. You can hover over this connection and click X like that. And now these two are dependent, just like that. Okay, so in my block of code, let's do some cleaning. So as you can see here, this gives some hint. The positional argument for your function is the data from the upstream block. So we have data. Actually, let's just run this and see what happens. If I run this, you will just see that it's just returning the data that it received from its parent. Okay, great. That's working as usual. Let's type in some code, some simple code. Data, we're just going to lowercase all the column names, and then we're going to remove the underscore. For those that don't want to type that out, let me share this in the Zoom, and then we can paste that in. Okay, so now we can run this and take a look. Okay, great, it works. It lowercase everything. Amazing. Awesome. So now that we're done with that, let's add another transformation block. Now, here's a useful tip. So let's say you wanted to add blocks in between existing ones. If you go right below the block that you want to add it for, it will insert it in between. So here's the load users, okay? We loaded it from Postgres. Let's take a look. Okay, we want to add a transformation block in between. Let's go ahead and click that. Let's click SQL. Let's name this number of emails because we're going to do some aggregation on these this user email table. Let's do select count. So if we take a look at this data real quick, we see that there's a ID user, right? So then there's probably, we can see already there's 4 rows with ID user 1. And then we can basically group by user ID and then count. And then we can get the count of how many emails are sent to that person. Let's do count as number of emails. Let's group by ID user. and then we can do from. And here we don't need to type the table name. We can just type this variable just like that. And it'll hint to us. It's telling us that this variable will resolve to whatever table is upstream. This is useful because you now can reuse this block. Let's say my team wants to reuse this aggregation block. I don't need to hard code the table because when they use it in their pipeline, they won't be forced to then work with the hard coded table name. So that's something pretty useful. Okay, now we'll group by ID user, just like that. Okay, so then let's go ahead and play this. Let's click play. And let's see what happened. It's running. And okay, let's see what happens. Okay, something terminated. It's probably the connection to the remote. Okay, awesome. There you go. So it grouped it by this, and then it tells me number of emails. So look, this person, we set 4 emails. Great. So now we are able to do some aggregations on this. Okay, now let's add another table that joins these two together. Because here we have so much information, we don't want to leave that off. And then we want to take this number of emails. So let's go ahead and go up to your load users. Underneath it, let's add another one for SQL. Let's name this users with number of emails, just like that. Okay, so if we take a look here, let's zoom out a little. What's going on? So here it's going to run, and then it's going to run this block. What we'll do is we will get load users, right? So we'll do select star from load users, which will be df1. But then we want to join this awesome new column that we have called number of emails. So how do we do that? Let's go ahead and drag this one, number of emails, into user with number of emails. So now we have 2 tables. Okay, so we can now do a left join on df2. And for those that just joined, df2 is the table that has our aggregated column, number of emails. Okay, so let's do, let's give this a cool alias, A, for example. And then let's do this as B. Naming is very hard. So so if we take a look at load users, there's a column called ID user. And then if we look at number of emails, there's a column called ID user. Great, they match. So that makes it easy. So A.ID user equals B.ID user. And then we'll just select, we only care about the column called number of emails from B. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. And ta-da, it joined all that together. And now we have a column for number of emails along with everything else. Great. So now we've done all of our transformations. Let's go ahead and take all this data and let's export it somewhere. So someone at the company can use it for predictions, analytics, reporting, etc. So let's scroll all the way down. Let's add a block for data exporter. There's many ways you can export data. I've showed a lot of how to use SQL. Let's do some Python real quick. So go ahead and choose Python, and let's choose the template. Let's choose Postgres. We'll just name this export to Postgres. Awesome. Let's save that. Cool. So here, again, it's a bunch of boilerplate. What we'll want to do is we'll want this to connect to a few things. Okay, so it's already connecting to this clean column names, which is, if we look, restaurant data. We'll want to also take this user data. So go ahead and hover over that, drag that, and drop that there. So now that we go down here, we can see data 1 is clean column names. You probably have better names than me, but just like that. To make life easier, let's just rename these positional arguments. So I'm going to name this to df restaurant. And this maps to clean column names. As you can see, the positional arguments come from its upstream. Okay, so then we got df users. Okay, so here, let's go down schema name. We can just do mage, and then your table name. Remember, this is a combination of everything. So let's just call it, I'm just going to call it final table, data talks, Of course, come up with a better name. And then what it's doing is it's just going to read the IO config, like before. You don't have to change anything there. But we want to combine these two. Combining them is actually probably easier in SQL, but I just want to show you how we can do it in Python. So we can do this in Python by doing df equals, let's say df restaurant. So it's just using pandas. It also could use polar, spark, data frame underneath the hood, etc. We're just using pandas for now. So we'll do merge. So we take the first data frame, which is the restaurant data frame. We'll merge the second one. We'll do how. We'll do a left join, and then we'll do a left on. So here's a little bit of mismatch. The restaurant data has a column called user underscore ID, but then the right one, which is the email information, the user information, has one called ID underscore user. Okay, so make sure you do that. I'll paste this in this Slack, the Zoom as well. Okay, I think that's enough. And then let's go ahead and run this. So it'll join them together, and then it'll export it. Nice, it exported it. That was fast, super fast. Cool. So now that we have our batch pipeline, we can now trigger this. We can run this one.
Question, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the question is about load users. So from that load users, we have two things coming out of it, two arrows, sort of, like in the deck. And if I understood the question correctly, if there is any way to adjust these connectors so they do not cross each other. I mean, speaking about the picture on the right side. So on the right side, I think it's automatically, the layout is automatic. And probably the question is if you can somehow change the layout so the connections that come from load users do not cross each other.
I see what you mean. Let me see, maybe the ordering of it. So this one had to do put down.
Because I assume since you
like that. Yeah, you can do that. You do something like that. It doesn't matter about the order now. So if you see here, if you take a look at this here, because I changed the order, df1 will now map to number of emails. So now I have, I'll just switch this. I think this will still work.
So it's not automatic. Another
it's
thing.
Fine.
Another thing. So I assume this is an automatic layout, right?
Yeah.
So you probably store this DAC in a YAML file or some sort of text file, right? And then
that is correct.
It means that I can commit it to Git, right?
And exactly.
And then I can merge and do all these nice things that is possible to do with Git. Everything is saved as code.
Exactly. Yes, everything is saved as code. Now you might wonder, oh, I don't want to work with YAML files, too many YAML file overload. Well, you actually never have to interact with this raw YAML file. Using the this notebook, this editor will just interact with the YAML file. And then you might also wonder, like, hey, why is there a YAML file? Why can't I just write in the dependencies like this? DAG add task. Let me tell you why. One of our core design principles that really sets us apart is we have engineering best practices built in, and one of that means modularity, reusability, testability. And so how we design Mage is we wanted every step in your pipeline to be reusable, be interoperable. You should actually be able to use each of your blocks, even outside of Mage, in another system if you want. You run it on your command line. In addition, your block of code should be able to run in anybody's pipeline. And so if you had to encode the dependency logic inside of your block of code, it's going to be quite difficult to reuse. So we separate those concerns. And so what your block does is in this Python file, and how your pipeline is organized is in a different file. So that's why we separate them.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I'll quickly go through, let's orchestrate it all. I'll skip the DBT part. Bear with me for maybe just, like 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. I want to show you data quality real quick. So data quality, there's 2 ways you can do data quality. You can write every Python block, you can write inline functions that test your data. So if you see here, down here, I'm going to paste in, you can write as many of these tests as you want. So I'm going to paste this in here. And if you look here, all I'm doing is every single time this block runs, whether it's in my notebook or it's end to end, it will first run this main block of code, and then the data that's produced is passed down into all of these test functions. So here I'm testing it, are there enough rows? And it's doing an assertion. So I'm going to press this play button, and you'll see that it's going to pass, right? So 1 out of 1 test passed. Let me just make it fail. So I'm going to make sure less than 10,000. So you get this test-driven development as a software engineering practice in data engineering. And it just showed there's not enough rows. So let me go ahead and fix that. Okay, run it again. Great, there's enough rows. I can even do a second one. You can do as many as you want. And what this also does is, let's say someone wants to reuse your code and changes it a little bit. Well, you have some tests in there that will fail if they change something drastically. So you can see, 1 out of 2 tests fail. Let me go ahead and change that, and it will pass. So it's great. This will run in production as well. And if it fails, your pipeline will fail. You'll get alerted for that. So that's one way of testing your data. Another way of testing your data is you can use our integration with Great Expectations. So if you go on your right-hand side, click Power-Ups, click Great Expectations, you can add an extension block. And what's great is you can make this reusable. So let's say I had test min rows, for example. Just with one Great Expectation block, I can have this expectation run on multiple blocks. I'm just going to paste in some existing code, but it's using Great Expectation syntax right here. They have quite a few of these built-in tests. I'm just testing that the table has number of rows between 1,000 and 10,000. I can select this and have it run on as many blocks as I want. I'm just going to choose this one. And while I'm coding, testing, I can just click this to run a sample. And as you can see, it succeeded. Let's just pretend we wanted to do 10,000 and 100,000. Let's save this and then rerun this. And you'll see that, I didn't save it yet. Okay, so you see this failed, and it'll tell you, it didn't meet the min rows. Okay, so let me put that back. Great. So that's how you can do data quality. Now let me orchestrate this real quick so that this will be the last piece. And then maybe in a follow-up we'll do like DBT and streaming. Okay, so now let's go back to our Postgres thing right here. What we can do here is actually, what was the name? Restless sound. Okay, you might have a different name for this, but I have restless sound. I'm going to copy the name here. Okay, this is going to be important. Let's go to our sync Postgres, or however you name your data integration pipeline. Let's go ahead and edit this one. There's multiple ways you can orchestrate this, but I want to show you a cool way. So here on the right-hand side, click add-on blocks, and then let's click a callback. Callbacks are other blocks of code that will run whether one of your blocks fails or succeeds. I'm going to add a callback block. And of course, it could be any Python code. You can have it print statement, make an external API call, whatever it is. Let's just choose the orchestrate trigger pipeline. This is boilerplate code again. And this boilerplate code will just trigger another pipeline. So here, let's change line 15 to the name of the pipeline. Mine is restless sound. It's a batch pipeline. What I'm doing here is I'm basically saying when this data integration pipeline finishes, trigger my batch pipeline to do all those transformations. The rest of this you don't need. You can delete it to make it look clean. Up to you. Okay. So next is we have to say when should this run. Again, I hope everyone's seeing the theme here of reusability. Dry. Don't repeat yourself. Let's say this block of code did something different. I can have it call back on each one of these. But for now, I'm just going to have it choose the very last one. Great. So now at the end of this, it will trigger this pipeline. Now let's go back to the main screen for the sync Postgres. You could do that by clicking this top button or clicking triggers. Let's go ahead and create an actual trigger now. Now, when you create a trigger, there's 3 types of triggers I said before. Schedule. You can create multiple schedules. This gets really advanced. So in your pipeline, you can have variable interpolation. Let's say I have a table for every country. I can have multiple schedules that run for different countries and it interpolates the variables, but that's an advanced feature we'll talk about later. For now, let's just choose hourly and let's name this hourly. Another type of trigger you can do is an event-based. So let's say you will have an event in AWS, someone uploads a S3 file, trigger this pipeline. And then also you can trigger this pipeline externally via an API call. Okay, let's save that. So now we can run this, and this will run hourly. And then at the end of it, it should trigger our other pipeline. So how can we test that? Let's go ahead and take a look. Go back to all your pipelines, click on restless sound or the name of your pipeline. And once our other pipeline's done, it should trigger this. Okay, so look, it did trigger it. So if you refresh, you'll be able to see this here. It triggered this, and it's going to start running these. Let's go. If you want to see the logs for the trigger, we can take a look at the logs as well. But here, we will just look at this. Great, cool. It updates in live. If you don't know how to get here, let me show you how we got here. Go to the pipeline for your batch pipeline. On the triggers page, you'll see your trigger. You can click on it. Then you'll see your runs. You can click on see block runs. And then just like this, you'll see all the block runs, the status of it, when it started, when it finished. And what's really cool is if you click on a row, you'll also see a sample output of what that block created in that, on that run, on that day. So let's say you're running this hourly, things are changing, and let's say somewhere in your data something happened. You can go back in time and look at the data and be like, oh, I see what happened. This entire column, is empty. And then you can even roll back to that. So it's partitioned, divergent, etc. You can also backfill. You can take a look at the logs. We went through logs before. Let me show you the monitoring piece. You can click on monitor, and then you can see, how many completed, how many failed. And then you can also take a look at the runtime. Okay, so that's the observability. There's also alerting, more advanced features. You can get alerted on failed successes via email, Slack, Teams, Google Chat, etc. Okay, we went over. So I don't know if people have questions. I don't know if we're over we are out of time or anything like that. But in a future one, we'll do some more advanced stuff. But I hope people enjoyed this. And we are online all the time, available all the time. Join our Slack. It's mage.ai/chat. We'd love to chat with you there. I can hop on another call with some folks, walk through things, answer questions. What's that?
Can you send this link now to chat? And
Yes, I will. 1 second. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to chat with anybody, answer questions as well. We're very available. We'd love to talk and get to know every one of you. So please join and chat. Yeah, I can also answer questions here too.
Yeah, there was a question about YouTube channel. Do you have a YouTube channel with talks and workshops like that?
Yes, absolutely, we do. Let me share that as well.
I tried Googling it, but yeah, there are so many things called Mage.
Yes. Okay, let me. I can share it with you. Give me 1 second here. Okay, here. Let me share it in the Zoom.
Yeah, while you're sharing, there was a question if we will have any similar sessions like the one today in the future. We have them regularly, but if we talk specifically about Mage, as you notice, we didn't cover some of the things, so we'll probably have another one. And also, we plan to have a similar one with more focus on ML in September.
Yes, we will. We'll definitely have more. We'll do one with, ML. There's some other advanced functionalities that we didn't cover as well. Streaming, there's streaming pipelines as well. There's a lot. And I thought we could fit it in an hour, and I guess we couldn't. Too much cool stuff.
I don't want to say I told you so.
You told me so. And I wasn't even able to answer questions. So next time, I was just afraid that, it'd just be too slow and people would not have fun, but if people had fun,
we did have a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
So probably right now, when you have time, it would be nice if we could put this in a GitHub repo.
Yes,
then I would
absolutely.
share the GitHub repo with everyone who attended. Then I will put this in the description. So right now in the description, we have all the links that Tommy shared with me. Also the configuration. It was very tricky to put it to YouTube description, but now it's there. I don't know how much, if it's copy pastable at all, but at least you have the information there.
I'll create that repo and then I'll share that with you later today.
Yeah, there is a question from Dmitry.
Yes. Oh, yes. I do want to answer some of these. These are really good. Oh, where are the Slack links? Okay, so here, let me share this is Slack. Okay, so but for the features to cut down monetization, great question. So we are
Can you
venture
read
back.
the whole question
Okay.
before?
Yep. So the question is, what features will you cut down when monetization will come into the horizon of your startup/enterprise? Great question. So we are venture back. You know, we raised quite a bit of money. We have 12 people on the team, and there's quite a few of us working on this, especially the community as well. We're completely focused on the open source project right now. It's going to be free forever, the open source project. We're continuously pouring features into it. Now, we have a different stance on feature gating. For example, there's a big feature like workspace management. There's also a huge feature for user authentication we baked into the open source free project. We don't believe in feature gating. We will monetize in a different way. Of course, we will monetize in 18 to 24 months. We'll have a cloud hosted version. We'll do some other ways to monetize, but we feel like there's other types of features that we're uniquely positioned to monetize off of, such as collaboration features, community features, etc. But some of those base features that we feel are table stakes, like user authentication, workspace management, etc., security, deployment, making it easy to deploy, that's going to be baked into the open source and free project. Great questions.
What you're saying is all the features we have right now in Mage will always stay in the open source version, right? So
absolutely.
It will not happen one day that a feature all of a sudden becomes enterprise only feature.
Exactly.
But new features that you will introduce, some of them might be only available for paying customers, right? Like collaboration, like you mentioned.
Differently. So one of the ways we're unique position to some of the features delivered on is like collaboration type features. Think of Figma, the multiplayer features. Like think of Google Docs, things like that, and also community features. Think of what Kaggle does, right? Think of what some of these really awesome Dribble, things like that. Those types of features, those we are thinking about potentially being able to monetize, since that enables you to access a greater, broader audience online, and isn't quite table stakes. It's not required for you to be able to excel and crush it at your job or help spin up your data infrastructure at your company. So those aren't really table stakes. So those are some of the things that we feel like we can monetize off of, instead of having to feature gate critical features that teams need and depend on.
There's a comment from Timothy about the Postgres credentials. Apparently, the website where you run Postgres will sunsetting the services. I saw the comment in 9 days or something like that. So maybe it's a good idea when we do create this GitHub repo to put the data there, so people can just reproduce it with perhaps a local.
Yes. Absolutely. It's sad that Bit.io is shutting down. They're really awesome. They're a really awesome company. So what I will do is I will have two types of credentials in the repo. One will be for remote location, right? So for Bit.io. And the second one will be, and I'll have instructions just to running Postgres locally. I think that can also be useful as well.
I know you have a lot of stuff on your plate, but that will help for sure everyone who is watching this more than 9 days from now.
Yes, absolutely. I'll make that available for everyone as well to be able to use Postgres locally.
Thank you, Tommy. So it was really great, and even though it took a bit more time, it's totally fine. So don't worry about that.
Awesome.
And thanks everyone for joining us today, for asking questions.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'll see you again soon in a couple of months.
And I'm really excited about the tool. So I see how simple it is. There was a question actually to me, what I think about Mage. And from what I see, it's an amazing tool, because it allows you to do this visual design, do these things like in the browser and like drag and drop, but still everything at the end is in the code. So I don't have to choose between a visual ETL editor and a code-based ETL editor, because I can have both, and this is really cool.
Yes. Thank you so much, Alexei. Excited to see everyone again. Thank you so much for having me, everyone, and thank you for spending time. Chat again soon.
Okay, well, speak soon with everyone.